Pope Leo is greeted on Wednesday at the first Extraordinary Consistory of his papacy as cardinals from all over the globe are called to Rome for dialogue, advice, and consultation. Days after he became Pope last May, Leo had pledged to include the College of Cardinals in helping guide his decision-making. Its 245 members are from diverse cultures, ecclesial and social traditions, and pastoral experiences. In gathering them together at the Vatican, Pope Leo encouraged unity and focusing on the four themes of evangelization and mission, synodality, liturgy, and reform of the Curia.
Siamo chiamati prima di tutto.
We are called first of all to get to know each other and to dialogue in order to work together in the service of the Church. I hope we can grow in communion to offer a model of collegiality. I am here to listen.
The Pope has indicated the possibility of more fully implementing reforms from the Second Vatican Council, devoting his weekly catechism lessons to a rereading of key Vatican Council documents. At the end of this week's two-day consistory, intended to assist Pope Leo in looking ahead at his future agenda, the Vatican announced the Holy Father will hold extraordinary consistories every year for 3 to 4 days beginning in June of this year. Leo's week ended with another consequential meeting, this one with the Vatican Diplomatic Corps. The annual gathering is a chance for the Pope to share his foreign policy concerns and what is often called a State of the Globe address. In a passionate and wide-ranging speech, he decried the use of military force and condemned not only ongoing conflicts and religious discrimination, but he emphasized that peace is still a realistic, if difficult, good. In a historic first, the speech to the diplomats was mostly in English.
War is back in vogue, and a zeal for war is spreading. The principle established after the Second World War, which prohibited nations from using force to violate the borders of others, has been completely undermined.
The Holy Father once again mentioned the U.S. incursion into Venezuela, emphasizing that the will of the country's people must be respected. Pope Leo also reiterated the Vatican's stance on a two-state solution for the conflict in Gaza. EWTN News Vatican analyst and senior contributor for the National Catholic Register, Edward Pentin, joins us now from our Vatican Bureau, where he's been tracking the news coming out of the consistory this week. Edward has decades of experience covering the Church. Edward, great to see you. First, Pope Leo calls for an extraordinary consistory so early into his pontificate, and now we learn there will be another one in June and likely every year. What is your reaction to this news, and is this a sign that Pope Leo is trying to distinguish himself from Pope Francis, who only held 2 extraordinary consistories in his entire pontificate?
That's right, Catherine. Yes, I mean, one of the concerns of the cardinals going into the conclave last year was that they didn't really have any time to consult the Pope. One of their chief roles is to be to give counsel to the Pope, and they weren't able to do that because the Pope Francis, as you say, only had 2 extraordinary consistories during his whole pontificate, and really relied on his sort of kitchen cabinet of 9 cardinals, the C9 they were called. So there was very little chance for the cardinals to get together in one big assembly to really just say what they were thinking about the Church, their hopes for the Church, and to really advise the Pope in that way, which has been the traditional way of cardinals going back centuries. So this, I think Pope Leo has acted on that, and this is very much part of that. He's going to have, as you say, he's going to have another consistory at the end of June, and then there's going to be, hopefully he wants one every year, probably longer too, maybe 3 to 4 days.
Wow. Due to time constraints this week, the cardinals could only focus on 2 out of the 4 themes for this consistory. They chose synodality and evangelization and mission. Liturgy and reform of the Curia will be saved for when there is more time. Edward, what are you hearing from cardinals about this decision and the conversations that took place this week?
Yes, well, on the one hand, some cardinals were concerned about this. They were disappointed because the liturgy, of course, is very central to the Church. You can't. Their belief really is that, you know, if the liturgy isn't right, if they're not worshiping God in the right way, then evangelization doesn't work very well. It's not very possible. So they wanted liturgy to be put at the center, and also because of the sensitivity of the issue over the last decades. And so there was concern about that. But on the other hand, Pope himself and others said that is an issue that could be brought up at other times. It wasn't really mentioned this time, but as I say, there's going to be more consistories going forward, and there'll be more chances for these issues, not only liturgy but other issues, of course, to be included. The consistory itself was very short. I mean, it was only really 36 hours, so there's plenty. I think the hope is that there'll be plenty of opportunity in the future, and with these new consistories coming up, that will be the case.
In other big news, Pope Leo gave a major policy address on Friday to the diplomatic corps, almost all in English. Edward, what was his message, and what stands out to you from what was a rich speech?
Yeah, well, the principal message I think he gave, Catherine, was that he's concerned that the nations are taking to war and use of force more and more, and less to dialogue and multilateralism and respect for international law and human dignity. So his whole thrust of this speech really was to call nations back to that example of focusing on dialogue and multilateralism and avoiding use of force. But also he was talking a little bit about free speech, which was quite interesting. He spoke about his concerns about restrictions on free speech and what he called a sort of Orwellian style of language, which is increasing, which excludes those who don't conform to an ideology that's actually fueling that kind of Orwellian language. So that was interesting too. And then the third issue which he focused on, which I thought was interesting and spoke very strongly about it, was the pro-life issue. And he spoke about the deplorable fact that a lot of funding goes towards abortion, but not to supporting families. And he also spoke against surrogacy and other issues, also the rights of conscience rights as well for individuals. So a very, very full speech, a very strong speech, and probably one of the strongest I think he's given since his election last year.
Certainly. Edward, Pope Leo announced earlier this week he is going to begin a new catechesis series during his Wednesday general audiences dedicated to Vatican Council II and a rereading of its documents. Here's our Holy Father on Wednesday.
The work of the Council Fathers paved the way for a new ecclesial season, placing at its center the mystery of salvation and the unity between God and his people.
Edward, what's your read on why our Holy Father is wanting to launch this new catechesis series?
Yes, I think it's interesting, Catherine, because I think one of the main reasons is because the generation that were part of the council have died or they're reaching the end of their lives. And so he wants to really bring back to a new generation, those who were not alive around the council, to reread the documents and so get a real sense, a true idea of what the council was about, instead of the spin that's been evolving since the council since the council ended in 1965. So I think his whole purpose of this is to really get a good grounding in what the council was all about, a great understanding about what it's about, to overcome some of the myths that have grown up since the council ended. I think that's one of the main reasons, and really just to help bring alive again the council. And as I say, to really reinforce what it was all about, and the original purpose of it, and the original aims that it had when it was started by Pope John the 23rd.
All very interesting. Edward Pentin, as always, thank you for your reporting and insights.
Thank you, Catherine.